Hi, and welcome to Hours for the Making. You and I live in an age of short-term thinking, and this can make life feel like a relentless flood of tasks focused on just the few short weeks and months ahead. And the result? Well, exhaustion if not burnout. In this video, we're going to look at the very best ways that you can escape this unfulfilling cycle. If you're new to this channel, here we talk all about how to live better by looking to the future in positive and practical ways. So let's begin with, where do we find ourselves? You and I are surrounded by some pretty powerful forces that pin our attention to a tiny territory of time in the here and now. These forces include distractive technologies, short-sighted business and politics, and even the wiring of our own minds with its natural bias towards the present over some abstract future. And all of this short-termism is a problem. After all, important questions shaping life, work, and the wider world require you and I to look through a longer-term lens. The trouble is, thinking longer-term can prove quite difficult. So what can you do to escape all of this short-term thinking, get future fit, and live better by looking to the future? I've been considering this question for a long time, and I've spoken to many people about how they individually engage with the future, or rather don't. I've read numerous studies in psychology, neurology, books on long-term thinking, slow thinking, fast thinking, just general thinking. And when it comes to how to improve the way you engage with the future, one idea keeps popping up again and again and again and again and again, which is get connected with your future self. Get to know them a little, right? And start to treat them as you might a friend. Now, if that sounds a little vague or abstract, you're not alone. So let's take a few steps back and start with how we commonly treat our future selves. Scientists have long been interested in the natural tension and unceasing conflict between the immediate wishes of our present self and long-term needs of wishes of our future selves. To decide to delay our reward to another time in the future, known as intertemporal decision making, requires us to overcome our natural inclination for the present. But it isn't always easy. We just prefer immediate, smaller rewards over deferred, larger rewards. In 1978, Thomas Schelling, the Nobel Prize-winning economist, devoted an entire theory to it, ergonomics. Schelling sought to explain how and why our present and future selves are in a continual contest of control when deciding between instant and delayed gratification. Schelling, along with others, suggested that we see the future self not as a continuation of the present self, but as a separate person that we might treat like a stranger. Evidence to support Schelling's theory came from a series of studies in which volunteers were asked to allocate an assortment of tasks and activities to their present self, future self, or to someone unknown to them. In one experiment, believing the scenario to be real, volunteers were asked to allocate a nasty liquid to be drunk. They gave their present self a certain amount, but chose to allocate substantially greater amounts to both their future self and the stranger, strikingly similar amounts as it happens. A further iteration of the experiment had participants allocating volunteering hours. The findings mirrored those of the earlier study. However, when it was pointed out to the participants that both their present and future selves would have the same overall experience of the volunteering, participants allocated hours more evenly between their selves. The key takeaway is this: in the continual contest of control between the selves, whether you view your future self as a separate person or not doesn't necessarily determine whether you plump for jam today or jam tomorrow. But what does seem to matter is how connected you feel to your other future selves, and there seems to be a number of important strands to this connection. And this could be important because if you understand a little about what shapes your level of connectedness to your future self, then perhaps you can start to strengthen that connection, and in doing so, step out of this world of short-term thinking. The first strand is vividness. So if I were to ask you right now to picture yourself in 30 years' time, what do you see? A clear and crisp picture of your future self going about their day, waking, having breakfast, leaving the house, or perhaps essentially you see your present self only with a few extra grey hairs, or maybe you just draw a complete blank. In his book, The Good Ancestor, public philosopher Roman Krznaric quotes survey data that shows that for most people the future goes dark after 15 to 20 years. And according to a study conducted by the US-based Institute for the Future, over half of Americans say they rarely or never think about something that might happen or something they might personally do at least 30 years from the present. So if you're struggling to picture the far future, you're not alone, but there's something worth noting. When you recall a situation more vividly, your mind instinctively believes that the situation is closer to the present time simply because you can better picture it. And if you believe that situation is set to take place closer in time to the present, it's more worthy of your attention, so you'll be more likely to commit your time, energy and resources to it. Let's move to the second strand in your connection to your future self: relevance. How relevant is a future scenario to you personally? For example, if I were to say to you, people's future selves are entirely dependent on the actions that they take today. That's a pretty generalised statement and one that applies to, well, anyone and everyone. However, if I were to say to you, your future self is entirely dependent upon the actions that you take today, well, that's pretty direct. There's an interesting study that examines the role that relevance plays in people's decisions to save more for their retirement. Participants were split into two groups. The first were asked to consider in general terms their future self-interest. The second were invited to consider the responsibility you have to yourself in retirement and to start saving more now. Researchers stressed to the second group your future self is completely dependent on you. Your decisions now will determine how much money is available to you when you retire. Participants in the first group, who received more generalised prompts, increased their retirement savings contributions. However, the second group, who had been told explicitly how their future self was entirely at the mercy of the decisions they took now, had chosen to bump up their retirement savings above and beyond the first group by an amount equivalent to $70,000 over the course of a typical working lifetime. A third important strand to your connection to your future self is: how plausible do you believe a future scenario to be? Futures that look highly desirable might attract your attention, but are you going to commit your limited time and energy to something that you believe is really improbable, if not nigh impossible? Okay, the fourth strand to your connection is similarity. So, for instance, in general terms, how similar are you in the present to how you picture yourself to be in, say, 10 years' time? And in more specific terms, how similar are your beliefs, values and personality right now to what they might be in a decade from now? You can visualize your similarity to your future self in terms of a pair of circles, one representing your current self and one representing your future self. The more these circles overlap, the greater level of connectedness you feel towards your future self. A final point on connectedness is an interesting one. Do you like your future self? Do you like your future self's personality? Do you like the actions of your future self? What you imagine they say or do? Taken together, these 5 strands form the ties of connection between yourself in the present and your envisaged future self, perhaps decades from now. And the argument, backed up by numerous studies, goes something like this. The stronger your connection to your future self, the more likely you are to be motivated to help them out, show them a bit of kindness and be generous towards them with your time and energy in the present. If you've enjoyed this video and are interested in practical ways to take these ideas forward, then check out this video, which gives you 5 strategies to start imagining and shaping what comes next. Thanks for watching. If you aren't already, feel free to hit the subscribe button and I'll see you over in the next video.